What's up, you guys? Century Productions here, and welcome to the Watchtower series. If you guys are new here, this is basically a deep dive of my toy photography. I take you through all my setups, maybe some issues that happened while I was taking the shot, and then I show you the completed shot at the end. And hopefully when you guys are watching this, you guys pick maybe a thing or two up, whether you're a beginner or a novice. I think there's a lot of good info that I'll throw out there, and you know, that goes both ways. Maybe you guys might have some suggestions below. Let me know, hey, I think you should have done this, or hey, I think you could have done that. You know, I'm open to feedback just as much as I am to giving feedback, so I think that's a really important thing. Anyways, as you can see, we are on the table with the Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man figure. There's no doubt in my mind now that I think this is my favorite Spider-Man figure. It's actually not even my favorite costume. This is the first appearance of Spider-Man. It's definitely not my favorite Spidey costume, but the figure, man, the figure is just like incredible, posable, pinless. I just love everything about this figure. I still cannot track down that Walmart exclusive retro Spidey that's on this body, so if there's someone out there that's got an extra one or has got a lead on one, hit me up on Instagram DMs, because I am dying to get my hands on one of these. And these Walmart exclusives, man, they're just like insane, dude. So anyways, hopefully one day I'll get that, but in the meantime I'll be playing with this figure. As we can see, we got a cool little setup here. We got a background, we've got a basically a Spider-Man web accessory right here that was custom made by my buddy Greg Laugh way back in the day. What's up, Greg? Still love this thing, I still use it all the time. And the cool thing I really liked about this Spider-Man is he comes with the two gripping hands. You know, most of the time when we get Spider-Mans, they got the two fisted hands, and if we're lucky, we get a couple other sets of hands, usually the thwipping hands, and then usually the wall-crawling hands, you know, the ones that are just like basically open like that, which these ones are probably my favorite Spider-Man hands. But we got the gripping hands here, which come in handy because I can have him holding on to this spaghetti webs, as Greg called them back in the day. I think Todd McFarlane called them that, but yeah, it's really cool. We got him holding on to it. He got a little end right here that's kind of flying in the wind. I wanted to give him a pose where he was like in the downward portion coming up from his swing. And then of course we had to throw a nice little background back here. This is one that I recently had printed off, and I believe this is from the Zdarsky Daredevil run, which was an amazing run. And this is a really cool background. So we kind of got the sun setting on New York, got the water tower back there. We hit him with a couple of yellow lights here to kind of sell that setting, you know, that tone of it. Maybe the sun coming down, or maybe the sun coming up. Maybe he got up extra early this day to go fight some crime. Who knows? But let's switch up the angle so you guys can get a better idea of how I'm making this work. You can see the piece of glass that I'm working with and all the lights. Alright guys, so you can see all my lights and the background and where the figure is, and you can obviously see I'm working with glass. Sometimes I get the question from maybe somebody that's newer to toy photography, is like, why are you using the glass? Well, basically what the glass does is it creates the illusion that the figure is airborne, and you can use glass for all kinds of different shots. You can make it for, you know, Spider-Man swinging, or maybe Superman flying in, or maybe somebody doing a jump kick. You might be asking yourself, you know, why don't you just use the stand and then erase it in, you know, post in Photoshop or Lightroom? And, you know, I'm a tangible photographer, so it's not really something that I do. Basically, the shot that you see online is the shot that I see through my lens. I don't do any editing to it other than maybe cropping it. So I really strive to keep it tangible and for all my shots, and there's a whole group of us that really stick to that in articulated comic book art. But if you use, you know, post-editing like Lightroom or Photoshop, dude, I ain't knocking it, man. I have several buddies that use it and are really good at it, and, you know, they kill it with their shots. So I think it's just like, it's basically like, you know, skateboarders, like you're either goofy or you're regular. So it all depends on your preference, but, you know, working with glass is actually, you get really amazing effects from it, but there's also a slew of issues you can run into. Like, one of the main issues I have when working with glass is I usually get a lot of dust built up around the figure. I'll take my shot, look at it on my computer, and I'll see that there's little dust built up. So I'll come over here with my microfiber cloth and I'll kind of clean it up. the best I can. Maybe get close to the glass, see if there's any specks or fragments or anything I see, and wipe them off, and then I'll take the shot again, and then it looks like there's even more dust on it because it's hard to see, man. You know, night shots, daytime shots, it doesn't really matter. Whatever you're shooting, you're always just going to get that little dust just popping up on your shot. And it can be really annoying. It can be really frustrating. I was having a hell of a time getting rid of it here. And then on top of that, you also have reflections, and you know, you have to keep an eye on the reflections. You have to set your lights up in a certain way to make sure that, you know, you're not getting a reflection of him, because like I said, we're trying to sell the illusion that he's swinging right here, and we obviously can't have him have a reflection of his face in the shot if he's swinging. So we're trying to sell that effect, and you can run into reflections, you know, the fragments on that. Fragments of dust and stuff like that, and it could be really annoying. Like I said, you can also have smudges if you don't clean your glass. Every time I use a piece of glass for a shot, I always Windex it and I wipe it down and dry it off, just to eliminate any smudges. You know, you'll see a lot of people, if they work with glass out there, you'll see smudges and stuff on the glass because they're not cleaning it before they use it. So every time I give mine a good wipe down. But yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with glass. Like I said, the effects are amazing, but working with it sucks. And I had a hell of a time here, I gotta tell you. Anyways, let's talk about the background here. I did want to mention one thing. You know, we have this building here. It's got a straight line. We got the water tower that's straight up. You know, when you're taking a shot, unless you're shooting at an angle, you're going to want to make sure that this is straight in your frame. So you have to kind of keep an eye on that. I do see a lot of photographers will take shots and they'll maybe have buildings in the background or a tree in the background, and it's like at an angle, yet the guys are standing on the ground. I'm like, dude, what's going on? Is Zod fighting Superman in that city and those buildings are just falling down? What's going on? So you really got to keep an eye on the level of your buildings. You know, I would say probably the most popular setting for superhero shots is probably a city, right? And I use a lot of these backgrounds with buildings and water towers and stuff. So I would keep an eye on keeping everything straight. And then for this shot, since I was shooting down and at an angle, I actually had to come in here and actually move this forward as well to match the angle. But other than that, it wasn't like too bad of a shot. I did, you know, have like a psycho moment there for a second. Started yelling at the glass and yelling at the background, but overall, I think it came out really cool, and we got that, like, you know, sun setting kind of tone, and I really like how this came out. Let's check it out. Alright, we got a cool little like WWE setup here with Hercules and Captain America. I was kind of going through some, like a Hercules phase. I don't know, I do this sometimes. I'll like go through a Transformers phase, and then I'll go through like a Marvel phase, and where I'm just like super heavily into like one subject, and then I immediately hop out of it. Well, I fell into a Hercules phase, so for like 2-3 days I was just like researching nonstop Hercules stuff, because I think what actually got me into that little phase was I picked up this figure and I was like, God, this figure is so sick, dude. It's just like the perfect representation of Hercules. And then I started looking at his backstories, and then before I knew it, I had read 12 issues of Herc, which is basically where Hercules became Brooklyn's hero, and I think it was such an amazing run. I absolutely loved the artwork in it, and it just got me thinking about Hercules' fighting style. I think Hercules' fighting style is called Pancration or Pancration. I don't know how it's pronounced. Maybe one of you guys in the comments can tell me I'm a dumbass. But it's basically boxing and wrestling. It's like Hercules' fighting style, so my mind immediately went to wrestling, and then boom, then we went to Captain America wrestling with them, and then I put them in this pose. I just looked up funny WWE wrestling moves. I've never followed wrestling. I know absolutely nothing about professional wrestling or regular wrestling. I know nothing about it. So I hit up my buddy Bever Clever, and I was like, what move is this? Because I was just looking up funny images and found this move and posed him like this. And then my buddy's like, oh, dude, that's Chris Jericho's move. That's the Lion Tamer. I was like, oh, perfect, dude, the Lion Tamer. Because one of his 12 labors, I think the first labor actually is him like taking down a lion. So I was like, oh, perfect, this is great. So I had this just posed on my desk for a couple days. I haven't really shot anything in a couple days. And I just had this pose, just them on my desk, but I had to think of like, where would I put all of them? Like, well, what scene would I put him in? I initially thought, oh, I got some like Greek columns, maybe I could do some like Greece type setup with like concrete, but it got me thinking, I was like, how could I make like a little wrestling area, you know, like a wrestling studio, a wrestling compound where people are training and stuff. So I started looking up some reference photos, and a lot of them have these blue mats, and they have like a lot of these little circles with the, you know, for the wrestling match where they have to stay confined in that area. And I was like, I got 2 of these blue pieces of construction paper right here. You guys can't see it from right here. I'll show you a different angle here in a second, but I got half of the white up there that will show in the picture. And then I put these 2 little columns in, and you know, this is just construction paper, guys. I mean, there's like nothing super crazy about this other than these 2 columns that came with another diorama. So this is like as cheap of a diorama as you can make, and I'm telling you, man, this thing looks good in camera. It looks really good. You have to be a little careful with your lighting because, you know, your light can affect the paper, change its colors, which you guys can kind of see if you look down right here. My lights are very close to this area right here, so you can see it's a little bit lighter blue, and as we go deeper it's a darker blue, but I mean, that's alright. So it just reminds me of like a wrestling compound or wrestling school or whatever you want to call it. And then I was like, you know what, this is maybe like Avengers Tower or the Avengers compound. This is like their training area. This is really cool. I'm definitely going to reuse this setup in the future. Basically just took a bowl on a red piece of construction paper and circled it out, cut it out, and I did the same thing for this yellow one. I actually already had both of these pre-made. I've used them as suns in the past, and then I just glue sticked them down. So, you know, I really wanted a tight fit on the pieces of paper attached to the blue, so the only way to really do that was to get a glue stick and just really glue them down, put something heavy on top. You know, I do so many cutouts that I'm kind of used to doing that already. So, looking at the scene, this is pretty cool, man. This is like the cheapest diorama you could make. So, I'm super stoked on this. Let me show you a different angle. All right, so not really much else to talk about. This is just kind of like the full little setup here. It's basically 3 pieces of construction paper or poster board or whatever you like to call it. And a little bit of ingenuity, man. You got the little circles cut out right here and taped in the middle, and then awesome pose. We got the little cutout to sell it. It says Wham. I've also taken an additional picture without the cutout in there, just in case I didn't, you know, just in case I wasn't feeling it, and I'll get a second opinion on whether or not I'll post this without the cutout. I just thought like it was something nice to fill up the space on the right hand side. And then of course I've got that Black Widow just kind of standing in the background, hands behind her back, like she's just observing them training. And you know, anytime I get an opportunity to have Captain America punking someone, I'll definitely do it. Captain America's my favorite character, but you know, I think this shot just really fits with Hercules. Hercules getting owned by Captain America, and Captain America's doing a professional wrestling move by Chris Jericho. I think this is awesome. I'm really feeling the shot. I think it's really cool. I love this style of shot. It totally just gives me like a comic book kind of vibe to it, especially with these comic book inspired characters. So I just love these figures. I think all 3 of them are just super badass. So yeah, let's check out this shot. Alright guys, so we are on the table doing a little X-Men, little Professor X, little Cerebro shot. Of course we're shooting the Professor X here, which I think is an amazing figure. You know, every time I shoot this figure, I'm like, damn, this thing is so cool. I love this figure so much. It's just really awesome. Totally gives that animated feel, that Jim Lee run type of feel. I love it. And then of course we're shooting with the Nova Ubiquitous diorama right here. This diorama is basically one of those kind of create your own type of environment type of sets. You can pick and pull pieces off of it and create all kinds of different stuff. Really leaves it to your imagination. So I really do like working with it and creating cool things, especially stuff based off of like technological things. So it kind of worked out perfectly that it ended up being Cerebro here. But this was actually not my initial idea. My initial idea was with Ultron and Vision. I was going to do a little Star Wars crossover with Ultron cutting off Vision's hand, but it just didn't really work out the way I thought it would. And I had already set all this up, you know, this took a minute to kind of figure out how to set up without you being able to see any of the supports underneath this long runway right here. So I was like, I gotta use it for something, man. I have it all up right now. And then, you know, when I was setting it up, I was like, oh, this kind of worked for Cerebro. So I guess that was kind of my fallback plan. And here we go. We're working with Cerebro. There's not really too much going on with this setup, to be honest. This doorway, I'm hoping that conveys that this is a doorway. This white piece of paper is literally just a piece of printer paper, just double-sided taped up against that diorama. And, well, I guess it's not really a diorama. These are just like walls for a diorama. I'm talking about the blue walls back there, but it's just a piece of printer paper. I'm hoping to convey that that is like a doorway that you can't see beyond. And I think it's so far away that you won't really be able to tell that, because obviously our focal point is going to be Professor X here, and he's going to be nice and in focus, and everything else is going to be out of focus. But you'll still be able to see the runway, still be able to see the doorway. You know, when you're working with these big setups, the main thing you have to worry about is lighting everything. And luckily, I've got this gigantic box light that's over there that's really doing a lot of the work for me. You can see a couple other lights. We got this light right here, which is one of my Ulanzis. It's lighting the side of Professor X. Got this other light over here, which is actually using to light the doorway. You know, since we're trying to convey that that's a doorway, we want to hit it with a lot of light to give it that kind of white hot look, as if there's like infinite amount of space behind it. So you gotta focus some of your lights on that. And then, like I said, that box light is really light. It's lighting up the runway, it's lighting up the back of Professor X, it's lighting up the wall. It's doing a lot of the work, which is one of the few instances I can say at this point that it's come in handy, because I've actually found working with that big box light to be rather difficult, or maybe me just kind of, you know, moving it into more and more setups. I've just found it really difficult to become accustomed to it. Alright, so you can see how these two Marvel Legends box sets are basically holding up this runway right here. You know, most of my setups are just kind of jimmy rigged, you know, with just random shit I have lying around my room. So you can see I have lights on top of all my trade paperbacks over there. I've got these empty Marvel Legends boxes. I think it's the Guardians of the Galaxy box, and this is the SDCC Book of Ashanti box. No figures in either of them. I just thought the boxes were so dope that I wanted to keep them. But I don't know if I'm gonna still keep them. This Book of Ashanti one, I should probably keep. That one's still pretty sick. But yeah, the reason why I use these boxes is they're very skinny and tall. And if you look back to the other angle, you know, they're not like big, fat, long boxes. They're skinny. They fit directly under this little runway we've created, and you can't see them at all from certain angles. So that's why we've used these little skinny boxes. And, you know, I didn't keep them for this purpose. I just kept them because I thought they were cool. But, you know, everyday household items can always work for your setups if, you know, you're resourceful enough. So kind of worked out here. Other than that, there's not really too much going on with the setup. We got the two little pieces of diorama back there, which go to a much larger diorama. We're just kind of using them as walls. And then, yeah, of course, Professor X is nice and lit. And we're working with a low f-stop so that everything in the background is blurry. Professor X is in focus. Stuff in the foreground is blurry. I think it's a pretty straightforward shot. You know, as big a setup as it is, the shot in itself is very simple. So I think it worked out really well. One thing I did want to mention, I was really trying to think. I was like, damn, should I include the bottom of Professor X's base here? Have him floating up, and dude, you know, in all the cartoons and everything, obviously you don't see this base or anything because the idea is that this is a hover chair. So I decided to just pull it off and just have him sitting on the ground. He's about to use Cerebro anyway. Yeah, man, pretty cool shot. Anyways, thanks for watching this episode of the Watchtower, guys. I really appreciate your guys' support. Of course, you know, comment down below if you guys have any feedback for me regarding any of these shots, or maybe you saw me do something that you thought was kind of cool and you want to try in your own personal photography, I'd like to know that. I think that'd be kind of cool. Of course, follow me on Instagram if you guys want to see these shots and even more behind the scenes on my Instagram Reels. I have Facebook and I do have a TikTok, but I very rarely post over at that TikTok. But yeah, if you guys want to see any of that stuff, all the links are down below. I really appreciate you guys' support, liking, subscribing, all that good stuff. It's really cool. So thanks for watching this episode of The Watchtower, and let's check out this pic.
That's crisp.